look, I'm sorry. I know it's late. I know it's probably March and you're probably playing Monster Hunter right now, but my top 10 games of 2024 is pretty amazing. To make up for it, I'm going to make this my shortest video yet. You'll see. This thing's going to be like 10 minutes long, and you're going to be able to get right back to your 2025 games. Don't worry. Trust me. Number 10, Dragon's Dogma 2. And I know, it's crazy, it's number 10, but of all the years I've been doing these, this might be the hardest year I've had in terms of games that I felt like were shoo-ins for my top 10 that weren't able to actually make my list, because it's been a really tough year for me, really brutal. I've loved so many games, including Dragon's Dogma 2, but, I don't know. We're going to get to like my number 2 or number 1, and you're going to be like, I definitely know it's this, or I definitely know it's this, and it's not going to be those, because that's how brutal this year has been. But Dragon's Dogma 2, what do we say? I don't know. It's been 10 plus years, and we finally got a Dragon's Dogma sequel, and I loved the first one, cult classic, hidden gem, we all loved it. But back then I was like, there's so much potential here. I can't wait for them to do a sequel and like improve on everything and refine everything, and they kind of just made another Dragon's Dogma. It's bigger. It's prettier because, it came out 10 years later, but it's not like, I don't know. It feels like the same game again, just bigger, like when it comes to RPGs, I get down and dirty with like class systems and skills systems, skill trees and loot systems. And I feel like this stuff is so similar to the first game, and it kind of bums me out because there's so much potential to go crazy with your builds, right? Because combat in Dragon's Dogma is great. It feels great. It looks great. It's so fun, right? But the way that the game limits me so hard from like using all these skills. It breaks my heart. Back when they did like Dragon's Dogma Online, which never came west and was kind of a failure, I used to watch these videos of these new classes, and it seemed like so cool. And seeing that stuff is one of the reasons I wanted so much more for a sequel. But here it's just kind of like mostly the same classes and same abilities, but in some ways even less. And I'm like, that's crazy. Why didn't they do so much more? At least with the warfare, you can like swap, you can have multiple weapons equipped and like swap between different abilities. But the fact that like the ability to swap is on the same set of 4 abilities that you can have equipped, so you have to like choose between those, and like when you swap weapons, it doesn't swap abilities. So if you have like 3 weapons for 3 classes equipped, you can only have like 1 skill for each of those classes. It's so crazy. Why are they limiting me? I feel like I'm getting into the nitty gritty. This is going to be a long video, but y'all knew that. It doesn't matter. I'm complaining, but despite all that, it's still Dragon's Dogma, so I still love it. I've come to realize as I dove back into this game so I can finally like get through it, because a lot of times I start a game in the middle of the year and then I move on for the sake of like podcast conversation, and towards the end of the year I kind of circle back and finish up games. And as I was finishing up Dragon's Dogma, I was realizing like, I got a lot of games to get through. Let's see if I can knock out Dragon's Dogma. But as I was playing it, I was like, no, man, nothing can speed me up in this game, because I just like being in this world. If you've ever heard Nick talk about Red Dead Redemption 2, like his favorite game, second favorite game, I don't know. He just likes going out into the wilderness and like hunting and just vibing with nature. And this is that for me, like the fantasy version, because let's be real, I'm fantasy pilled. I don't hate fantasy like Nick. This is the game for me. I just like being in that world, and I'll go out at night and like turn off my torch and just like absorb the atmosphere of the night and just look for glowing golden beetles, and it's so good. I don't know, Dragon's Dogma, man. Why did I put it at number 10? I don't know. Look, this is going to be a tough list. It's really good. Y'all know. Let's move on. Number 9 on my list is Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown. And god damn it, I know there's a lot of you out there who still not have played this game. It's fine. Well, it's not fine. I mean, Ubisoft shut down the studio, and it's the same studio that made those good Rayman games, and man, now I'm just kind of sad. But you know what? Prince of Persia: The Lost Crown is really great. It was surprisingly great. Maybe my biggest surprise of the year, because I really was not expecting it to be as good as it is. When this was announced, I kind of was like, it's this nice effort. It'll be a nice little casual 8-hour Metroidvania. Probably won't be too difficult or anything too like unique or innovative. And man, I was wrong. I was wrong, because as soon as I booted this game up, I knew it felt right. Like, combat felt good, movement felt good, the platforming felt good, and I'm like, okay, this is like top notch, you know. But the further I got into the game, and it just kept going and going and going, and I started unlocking cool accessories that would, you know, let me change around like what my abilities did, and I started creating builds of my character and finding new areas and new secrets and new bosses, and I was like 10, 20, 30 hours into this game. They didn't just make a Metroidvania. They made a fucking Hollow Knight. I had no idea pre-release that that's what their template was. They made a fucking Hollow Knight, and it's hard. Like a Hollow Knight game. Like, combat is like consistently challenging. Platforming is well done, challenging. There's puzzles, and the puzzles are good. They're creative. Like, everything is like punching above its weight, I feel like, in a way that I really wasn't expecting. It feels balanced. It feels challenging. It feels good to play. But like, it's also not that safe. Like, there's cool, unique abilities that I have not seen in a lot of other Metroidvanias. I thought it was just going to be a double jump and a wall climb, but no, it's cool, timey-wimey, you know, Prince of Persia-y type stuff. Like the ability to like create like a spawn point and then like warp back to it anytime you want. And the way that like plays into combat and boss fights and puzzle design and platforming, again, it's so well implemented. And then they even have things like for example, you can find an accessory that makes it so that little laser, the zoomy zoom, when you go back to your spawn point, actually like does damage, and you can start building around that. I mean, this is like a well thought out one of these. It's surprisingly good. Or there's an ability where you have like a little pocket dimension where you could just like grab a fireball and like put it in your fucking dimension pocket, and then like later on like use it in another combat scenario or in a puzzle scenario. And I found out you can grab enemies and stick enemies into that little pocket dimension. Like, there's cool, unique abilities, and the way they all play into all aspects of the game. So good. Surprisingly, very surprisingly incredible. I'm talking about these games already, and I'm like, how did I put this at number 9? How is Prince of Persia at number 9? I don't know. It's one of those games where when I'm not playing it, I'm like, oh yeah, that one was nice. But then when I pick it up and I'm playing it again, I'm like, oh, this is incredible. But now as I'm really kind of like talking it out, I'm like, oh, this shit is gold. Anyways, Prince of Persia, it's been on sale all year. It came out at the very beginning of the year, last year, of course. Pick it up. It is weirdly good for a studio that it should not have been surprising. I know it's Ubisoft, but those Rayman Origins Legends games were kind of goated. So I feel like we should have known. Ubisoft got the wrong message. They shut down the studio, dissolved them. I don't know. Terrible. Bad vibes. What's going on here? Anyways, next game. All right, y'all. Number 8. Don't adjust your dials or your resolution. You didn't accidentally select 280p or whatever the fuck. This is, I had to have one of these. A Brad game on here. It's Kingsvein. Kingsvein, it came out early 2024 from the creators of Horizon's Gate. Y'all remember when I talked about that shit? It's from that same developer. And if you remember me talking about that game, if you don't, let me refresh your memory. This is a studio that's really, really good at making strategy RPGs, with like grid-based tactics, like Final Fantasy Tactics, with kind of like small numbers, a lot of environmental like interactions and reactivity, kind of like a Larian game like Baldur's Gate. But then they'll have a class-based system with skill trees that get it, like skill trees that are very Final Fantasy Tactics, you know, the kinds of skill trees that you just want to like stare at for hours. At least I do, dreaming up builds, you know. Oh, what if I put the ability from this class and I do a subclass with this, and this has a passive that synergizes with that other ability from this other class, and you can find items in the world that let you like have one bonus like skill from another class without actually subclassing. And let me slow down. What I like about Kingsvein is they took that core that they have in all their games, which is a good combat system, a good job class based system, and put it in a world that is like, it's, oh man, how do I even describe it? It's got like an overworld, like a Zelda game kind of, right? Or like a Metroid style game, and you're exploring and there's shit blocking your way and you're kind of like poking around, looking for secrets, exploring. Exploration is so good in this game, but unlike games where you get specific abilities to explore, the abilities and the skills that you're unlocking in the skill trees for the job class system are the same abilities that will interact with the world that feeds into exploration, solving, and finding secrets. Like you, because you get a ton of abilities that will, like, you know, like wind ability that can push enemies away, or like a class that gets a chain attack that can pull things towards you, and you'll use these abilities to manipulate like parts of the environment to like get around. So like in the game, it knows you're gonna like get these abilities, but you really have to kind of dive into the skill trees and find out not just how stuff could help you in battle, but how stuff could help you get to parts of the world you weren't expecting before. Like I like one of the later classes you can spec into, like Final Fantasy Tactics style, is like a gate. What is it called? Like a gate mancer or whatever. And and the character I got, she got this ability to she was able to teleport like 4 tiles away, right? This is a caster class, right? And in battle, you can do it as like a free action. You know, it costs like a little bit of mana. It's a free action that you could do at the end, that you can set. You could set up the ability to like, I'm going to teleport here after my next action, like 3 tiles away, which makes sense because it's a caster class. It lets her get up close, like do like a pretty powerful spell at like close range, and then teleport out of the way, so like in the enemy's turn they don't retaliate and like fuck you up because you're a squishy, right? But like outside of battle, it was like this life-changing ability that I was able to like teleport through windows and teleport off across crevices that I wasn't able to get across, and it fed into so much exploration and puzzle solving, and you feel like you're breaking the world, but it's really designed around those abilities. I mean, speaking of breaking the world, you literally get a hammer that can like destroy the environment, and this shit is so good. And I know I'm getting excited, and the way I'm talking about it makes it sound amazing, and you're looking at it and you're like, yeah, but it looks like a game from the 80s or something, and fuck you. You're just gonna have to get over that. This is like secretly like a Larian game in disguise. I don't know, maybe I'm overselling it, but like the loot system is so good too. I love like the loot. Oh, they get it. You can slot like runes, elemental stones inside your weapons and your armor, and they have different effects, but depending on your armor or your like weapon, and the upgrade system is so good. You could like put like glue stuff in your weapon that'll like make it to where you reduce the movement of an enemy every time you hit them with it, and you combine that with the fact that with this class, if I end a turn standing next to them, I also reduce their movement, and combining all those things to make it to where like you hit an enemy with one of these characters and they're like fucking debilitated, they can't even move. And guess what, with your fucking archer, you have this attack that you have to charge up, and as long as the enemy doesn't move, you're gonna fuck them up. But since you synergized, you made the best fucking team comp ever. I love Kingsvein. It's so good. It's so good. But maybe just for me, I don't know. Maybe it's one of those. I've tried to get people into this, but they're just like, I don't know. It's ugly, dog. That's all I care about. You shallow motherfuckers. You shallow. No, I'm just kidding. It's great. Moving on. Oh, I was getting so hyped, and I was just doing my number 8. What's going to happen with my number 7, which is Like a Dragon, Infinite Wealth. That's right. There's not going to be a Brad top 10 list anymore without a Yakuza game on there. They always make it on. And it's not even fair. I almost should like have an honorary spot that I would normally give to Yakuza and give it to another game just to be fair. I don't know. You know, I was going to put that Castlevania DLC for Vampire Survivors on because I loved it so much, but I was like, that's not fair. It's literally just taking up a spot because Vampire Survivors is good and addictive, and I love Castlevania so much, and the music was so good. But we're not talking about that game. We're talking about Yakuza, which probably shouldn't be on here, but it is. It's the follow-up to Like a Dragon 7, which was the first like foray into like a strictly turn-based RPG, the introduction of Ichiban. That game was fucking amazing. This is the follow-up to that. Honestly, just as amazing. Maybe not in the ways I expected. Like, while that last game I think had like a pretty great fucking story, and the spin-off with Kiryu, you know, the Kiryu Gaiden game or whatever was also really great with the story and set up some shit in this game that I felt like maybe kind of let me down a little bit. The main quest line here, there's some like neat twists and cool moments, especially with Kiryu towards the end, but like the main Hawaii quest line was just like, I don't know, kind of whack. But luckily, Ichiban and crew and all the new characters and returning characters are so good and so charming, and like the bond system where you're like having conversations and dinner meals and all that stuff is so good. Like the mechanics and the systems are so well evolved from that last game in a way where I feel like Yakuza games used to iterate slowly. Here, I feel like they made like a lot of smart changes coming off of like a Dragon 7 that were like immediately like, yes, I had a short list of things that I was like begging for them to like add or to fix coming from that last game, and they actually did a lot of them. Like the biggest thing I think is the fact that you can actually move around some in battle. When you take a turn, even though it's turn-based, you have like a movement ring that is like a stat dependent, like faster classes can like move a little bit further, but just giving you that ability to move and position yourself allows for like so much more interesting like positional based stuff, like back attacks and attacks that knock the enemy from one into another, and like area of effect attacks and line attacks, and that stuff is so much better now because you can move. It might have seemed like a simple change, but it was so essential, and I'm so glad that they figured it out. And the job classes, oh, they're so good. They're so funny in this one. You know, we did a top 3 podcast, like a top 3 podcast like a year or so ago, 2 years ago, where it was like our top 3 dream games. And one of the games on my list was literally Yakuza Goes West. And this was before they had even teased that Like a Dragon was going to Hawaii. In my mind at the time, I was like, what if Kiryu was in Texas, you know, like the Wild West, or, you know, some crazy shit like that. And while Hawaii isn't quite Texas, it has all the stuff I want. It has the kind of like, oh, this is what things are like here. That's crazy. But especially, they made Cowboy Kiryu. I specifically called out Cowboy Kiryu as something I wanted. And the Desperado job class has all of that. He's riding bulls. He's using lassos. He's throwing like drinking moonshine. It's so fucking good and charming and funny and just and that's just like the mechanics and stuff. Like they're all the fucking crazy mini games are here. Dondoko Island is they put Animal Crossing and Yakuza. And this shit happens all the time. Like think about like the Hostess Club stuff and like Yakuza 0 or the management stuff in Yakuza 7. Like every time I play one of these games, I'm like, oh, it's cool and clever, but like it's probably going to be like shallow or not all that cool, and I'll just maybe play it for the story. But no, Dondoko Island, in some ways, it's like even better than Animal Crossing. They made an incredibly addictive, fun, silly, charming. It's absolutely wild. There's a Pokemon system in this game. I can't believe how good this is. It might sound like a bit now, but all of the games I talked about so far feel like I should have put them in my top 5. I'm getting so hyped thinking about them. There have been years where I don't actually say the number before the game, and then I'll determine the order after the fact based on hype. But we'll kind of see how it goes from here. Maybe I will do some weird numbering shit and you'll be really confused, but maybe I'll just be hyped about all these games. I told you at the start of this list that it's such a crazy year. There's like 5 games that I was sad that aren't going to make the list, but I really do love all these games. God damn it. Ichiban, still one of the greatest video game characters ever. like without a doubt, instant classic. You know, I knew it as soon as I saw his stupid face in that last game, and sure enough, he's so great here. Yakuza. Can't wait for Pirate Yakuza. The question is, are you all going to see this video before the Pirate Yakuza Majima game is even out? I don't know. Number 6 is Tactical Breach Wizards. This is an indie game where you play as Nah, I'm just kidding. I'm going to be hype about this one too. I love this game as well. Tactical Breach Wizards, you know, it's from the makers of Gunpoint and Heat Signature. I don't know if you ever played those games, but this is a like Into the Breachy style tactics game where, you know, you're pushing and pulling and you know, it's very easy to die, but it's also very easy to, like, you know, take out enemies. It's a tactics game, like a small space tactics game where you can see what the enemy's about to do and you're kind of reacting to that stuff. But like, and you're wizards. It's like a door breaching game, but you're wizards, and it seems like a goofy concept, like on paper, almost like a joke or a bit, right? Like, oh, wouldn't it be funny, you know, if it was like a SWAT game but wizards? I mean, but like they commit to the bit so hard, and like in the predictable ways, but also in like the unexpected ways. Like, obviously it's an incredibly funny concept, and it is an incredibly funny game from like the types of abilities you get, where, you know, you have a breach witch who can actually where she can, like, she has the ability, it's like a movement ability where she can use her witch's broom, and if she's by a window, she can fly out the window and appear anywhere else on the map, because, you know, she's got a witch's broom, you know, like there's clever concepts that play with the fact that you're wizards, right? There's a wizard who can see 1 second into the future, right? Which is, again, silly, and this game is hilarious, and the writing is like weirdly good. And you start to care about, we'll get to that in a second. But, you know, 1 second into the future is not very useful unless it's a breaching game where you need to see who's in the room ahead of time. And you're having these conversations before you, like, breach a room about what's in the room. And the reason the guy knows that is because he can see 1 second into the future where he already breached into the room. It's incredibly silly, but also like mechanically interesting. And of course, because he can see 1 second into the future, he's like the Overwatch guy. And you're using all kinds of abilities to like move enemies around the map, including, you know, knocking a dude into the, you know, Overwatch fire, or knocking the wizard with the Overwatch fire into the line of the enemy. It's incredibly cool stuff where you have like such a huge list of abilities for all these different characters, and at any given turn, the way you have so many options to like play with your food, and the fact that the game puts in the ability to rewind as much as you want to the beginning of a turn. You can actually like try a bunch of different setups, like, oh, maybe I'll do this and hit this guy into there, knock this guy out the window, and knock this other guy out the window. You knock a lot of dudes out of windows, and then just say, you know what, I think I can do better. I think I could do better. And then you take all that back and you start fucking with abilities in a different way until you get like a perfect turn. And the game like encourages you to do that stuff. And gameplay wise, because of that, incredibly solid. But what I was not expecting is for this to be such a well written game. Again, it's funny, but it's also like kind of smart and like about it, and like and heartfelt in a lot of unexpected ways. Like, you really care about the characters, and some of the conversations you have, like, you know, between these maps are like, you know, just like, oh man, like ride or die, like good friendship conversations, but they also kind of deals with, like, you know, they have like dream sequences where you're breaching rooms with a copy of yourself and you're having conversations with yourself, and it's all like your inner thoughts, and incredibly creative. They keep finding like cool places to take the story, cool scenarios and enemy types and like map types, like all the way through the end of the game. It's fresh all the way through, and there's all kinds of like side challenges and that are challenging. And I played this shit on hard, and, you know, getting through these levels was hard enough, but getting through the levels while also getting like the bonus challenges that would give you the currency you needed to like buy cool outfits for your characters, like trying to get through levels while also getting those bonus challenges were like very difficult at times, where I would really be kind of staring at a turn like you would in like a really difficult turn in Into the Breach, until you finally figured it out. And sure enough, I feel like there was always like a cool solution, and you always felt so smart when you figured it out. Oh man. Shout out to the mission board, like the pin board, where you can actually move around like all the different like components of like the story, like the different people and the locations, like a string board, you know, like a conspiracy string board or like an investigation string board, but except you can move all that stuff around, and it's such like this little thing, but it made me so much more engaged in a story that was, you know, kind of like spanned the globe, and there was a lot of moving parts, but since I was able to move those parts physically on the board, I don't know, it kind of helped me put it all together in my head. It was a little thing that, again, seemed incredibly smart, and I get it. Tactical Breach Wizards. Hopefully some of y'all have tried this game, but highly recommended. Really good. All around, complete package. Number 5 on my list, a game that I finally finished. It took a while. It took a while to finish. I played a lot of games this year, and I went back, and one of the reasons I think you're getting these videos so late is, well, I don't know, because we've been busy. But because they're coming out late, it let me kind of finish up a lot of the games in January that I normally would have not had time if we had released these videos sooner. One of those games is Lorelei and the Laser Eyes. Man, this was a game. This was a lot. When I first started this game, I immediately liked the look of the game and the atmosphere. It's like the mystery and like the slight tinge of horror as you kind of creep around this mansion, solving puzzles and like unlocking, you know, doors and trying to figure it all out, the crazy story and all that. It's like that stuff is immediate, right? But the game is a lot, because it's a very difficult puzzle game, and it's one of those Metroidvanias, if you will, where like the only thing that's really holding you back is knowledge that you have not obtained. Metroidvania. Whoever invented that is pretty good. I think I have another Metroidvania on here later. We'll get to that one. But Lorelei and the Laser Eyes. Oh man, you know, kind of like The Witness or something, or you know, like Oberdin, where you don't even know what you're looking at first until you finally do. And when you do, you start putting all the pieces together in your head, and all of a sudden you're like, oh, wait a minute, I can do this other thing now, and I can do this other thing, and that thing that looked like nonsense before is suddenly, you know, you're seeing the Matrix code. It all makes sense. Lorelei and the Laser Eyes is one of those, but I do warn you, incredibly good at that stuff, but it is a lot. This is a game where I tried playing it, and I did play with my wife. Like at the end of the day, you know, we put the kids down, but we're both dead tired. We turn on this game and we'd be like, oh, they want me to do math and you know, spatial reasoning and stuff. This is so much. It requires a lot. A pencil and paper and probably your camera phone, and it's a lot. But I promise you, if you give this game your undivided attention, you will be rewarded with some like genuinely like shocking moments, stuff that you didn't see coming in terms of like what the game is doing. This is absolutely nuts. I kind of don't want to spoil any of it, but I am kind of like also trying to like heavily recommend this game, but it goes places I was not expecting. It starts off pretty simple of like number puzzles, you know. I say math, but it's not really math. There's a lot of you know, like Professor Layton-y kind of puzzles where it's like, I see what you're trying to do here, you know, not like trick questions and stuff, but like, you know, it's clever. It's clever, but man, there's a lot of stuff that you keep swirling in your head or swirling in your notepad. And to be fair, they do a really good job of any sign or door or anything that you see in the world that is of even the remotest, not even of importance, because you don't even know what's important. It all gets saved in your like photographic memory, which is literally a thing in your menu that you can go look at and reference every single thing that you've like interacted with in the game. And it is remarkable having all of this stuff just on your person as you explore this, you know, increasingly larger and larger environment as you're unlocking doors and shortcuts and stuff. But very well done. If there's anything that really like kind of bothers me about it, is that the they do this insane thing with the UI where it's like one button and there's no cancel button. So as you're like leafing through all of these like books and letters and all the stuff you've picked up, if you want to exit out of the menu, you're like, like moving the cursor over and scrolling all the way to the top to like hit the button to actually close out the menu. And it sounds insane. Why would they not just put in a cancel button? But the reason they're doing that is because the game is very cleverly set up to make it to where if you're just playing the game normal and you're getting it and you're cruising, you're building momentum and it feels really good. But if you get kind of stuck, the game is designed in such a way, the UI is designed in such a way where it's not going to like it. It's going to feel bad if you're just guessing, because a lot of these like combinations and stuff, you'll have one guess. And if you get it wrong, it's kicking you back out. It's saying, fuck you. You can try again, but I'm going to waste your time. And then you're going to have to go through the arduous process of circling all these numbers around and it might sound obnoxious at first, but the way it like forces you to really understand a concept before you like actually, plug in a number, it makes sense. Because if you were to, do any of these puzzles without truly getting it, it would be like detrimental to like later portions of the game. Kind of like, how The Witness would do like 10 puzzles in a row that were like increasingly more difficult. Like that's how that game trained your brain to like not guess on something. This one does it through like hostile UI, which is weird and frustrating at first, but maybe a little clever. What am I even talking about? This game, maybe the most like visually stunning game I played this year. Amazing soundtrack. Just, again, the vibes, the atmosphere, the way it's like never like a horror game until it kind of is. But you're kind of creeped out, but also intrigued the entire way through. It's kind of remarkable. You just have to give it your all. Pick up Lorelei and the Laser Eyes, maybe find a roommate or a partner or whatever, get a pen and paper, and man, you will have a good time. It is one of those. It is peak puzzle gaming. Number 4, Unicorn Overlord, Vanillaware. Creators of 13 Sentinels, Muramasa the Demon Blade, Odin Sphere, Dragon's Crown, those guys. They make beautiful art, as you can see here when I get into a combat scenario. Absolutely gorgeous. They made an Ogre Battle. Of all things, they made a spiritual successor to Ogre Battle, which is a series that has been gone for a very, very long time. But it's one of like Yasumi Matsuno's like things. Like you might have heard of like Tactics Ogre, which is a grid-based, turn-based. It's like a Final Fantasy Tactics. It's literally the series he made before Final Fantasy Tactics, but before that he made Ogre Battle, which is a real-time strategy game where you move squads of your army around a map. You're capturing, bases and towns and moving all the units, fighting enemies until you like take out the final boss of that map, who's like, defending some castle or whatever. That is an Ogre Battle map through and through. And then when you get into fights, your enemies will attack each other like an auto battle sort of thing, but based on like your team compositions and the scripts that you set up for them and the loot that they're equipping. Like it might seem like a game where the combat is very passive. And at first people are like, oh, well, this isn't very deep because I don't even have control over the enemies in battle. It's not about that. It's not about that. So like take the, it has like kind of like a gambit system, like from Final Fantasy 12, or the tactic system from like Dragon Age Origins, where every character within this squad, you're setting up scripts for them. Like, oh, well, this healer is going to use a healing spell if any of my teammates is below 50% health, but if not, you're going to skip this, like if-then statements. If not, you're going to do this debuff on the enemy, right? And it's all about putting squads of different job classes together, and they do such a good job. This game, they did Ogre Battle better than Ogre Battle, except for story. Honestly, the story doesn't really compete to like a Yasumi Matsuno game. That's fine. But I will say, in terms of gameplay, it clears it completely. They thought of everything. The actual, like, the amount of, like, different, like, job classes and skills that they have is so good. And the way they interact with each other and synergize off of each other. I spent so much time in the menus of this game creating squad compositions, team compositions, and it was so much fun. And they give you the tools to kind of test them out against your own squads, and just you're just min-maxing. You're just perfecting like the script. And it's not just the skills and the abilities and the timing of those, like that Gambit style system, but like the loot in this game is so good. I think I put 120 hours into Unicorn Overlord this past year, and so much of that time was fucking around with all of these tools. They give you so much stuff. Swords that have like new abilities, and boots and rings that are doing crazy shit, and like putting this on that and this thing on that, and I'm gonna make this guy a different job class, and throwing all that together, and like just by the end of that game, even though the game I played on the hardest difficulty does get pretty difficult, just going up to an enemy squad and completely wiping them because of all the hard work you put into that squad before you even got into battle, that's the fucking gameplay, man. Tweaking that stuff. If you're a tinkerer, if you're a tweaker, well, not a tweaker, if you like tweaking like builds and like team compositions and like trying out new skills and armor and equipment, and like, I'm gonna put you in this squad, but no, let me take the sword off of this guy, and like this guy has a spear that has like a board clearing charge attack, but he's really slow. What can I do to make it to where he is the first person that does his ability as soon as I enter a battle? Normally, he would probably die before he could even do that skill that hits everything, right? I'm going to make it to where that skill not only is going to go first, but it's going to be like a guaranteed crit. It's going to be like enchanted, and I'm just going to blow away the competition. It's Unicorn Overlord is so good. This won the award for like I had an award during our award show of like my favorite time in menus, and this won that award for me. My own personal award, favorite time in menus, and I had some pretty good contenders this year, honestly. But man, all of that, just good systems in combat. But they actually did like this really remarkable thing where they made this whole overworld map between battles that you're exploring. You're doing side quests. You're like like finding like treasure maps and stuff, and like looking for that treasure. There is so much stuff to do in the world between battles. It's like it's incredibly addictive. You're like constantly recruiting new characters, and then you're like upgrading towns, and you're stationing guards at towns, and you're unlocking the boat that lets you sail to a secret island to find this fucking thing that's related to another side quest. There's so much good stuff in and outside of battle. It just really is one of the most expansive and addictive games I played this year, and I did not expect that from Vanillaware. In my opinion, Vanillaware, famously like, good at making gorgeous games, but they're always like a little shallow or a little too weird, a little too like weirdly balanced. Like coming off of 13 Sentinels, which was also in a way a strategy game like this, where the strategy part was fine, but most people cared about the story so much more. They didn't even care about like the combat. They just wanted to get back to the story. Here, I almost like the story is like adequate, but like, man, it's almost getting in the way of like that juicy ass combat system or those juicy ass menus where I just want to see what this new ring does and how I could just remake my entire army around this new awesome ring. Literally moments like that in this game. That's why it took me 120 hours. That's not multiple playthroughs. This is how my sick brain handles a single playthrough of Unicorn Overlord. Look it up. Go to howlongtobeat.com. I way past even the completionist time. That's how bad I am with games like this. But like, because of that, that's why it's so high on my list. I love Unicorn Overlord. It's so good. Number 3 on my list, Animal Well. Animal Well. This one was, I don't know, like, it was pretty hyped up when it came out, and people were pretty like all over this game. But I feel like, towards the end of the year, people kind of forgot about it a little bit. And you know what I've come to realize? Those are layer 1 girlies, probably, right? I'm a layer 2 girly over here. Well, I dabbled in layer 3. I dabbled in layer 3. But I think the true magic of Animal Well Well, it's all fucking magical. I don't know. I've been saying this like, oh, you don't know until you like get as far as you have. But I was in love with this game from minute one. I love me some Metroidvanias. This one might be a Metroidbrania. I'm pretty sure it's a Metroidbrania where as you explore the world, you don't even know what you're looking at until you really, really see the Matrix code, if you will. Stuff that seems simple, like a little animal doing a weird little thing, is just something you ignore. Just background stuff later in the game, you might realize, oh no, that is like a significant thing, and I just walked by and didn't even realize. It's one of those. But even before you get to that point of like the truly understanding of how all the different parts of the world exist, like it's just a fun game to like move around. It's gorgeous. Like the actual skills you get, like the items you get, like super unique, everyone's heard about like the frisbee and like, oh, you can ride on the frisbee. I didn't know. Everyone loves to bring that up, but every single item you get has sort of that moment of like, oh, whoa, if I can use the yo-yo here to do this. If I wasn't like playing around with these items, I would have never figured that out. And that is the true magic of Animal Well, is that it teaches you early on, like, play around with this stuff because you're going to discover some cool things. And it was so fun figuring that stuff out. But by the end of like layer 2, when you're like 100%ing the map and collecting all the eggs, it almost feels like a different game. If you have only reached credits in this game, you've seen so little of Animal Well. It's kind of crazy. So like, if this game ain't on like Nick's list, who, he's one of those dudes who just hit credits and was like, that was nice. If it's not on his list, that might be why. I don't know. I mean, granted, like I just said, I did like it a lot back then, but even when I first started, but man, some of the crazier secrets that you find in layer 2 and beyond, so good. Where every little, I've heard some people call it pixel hunting, but nah, it ain't pixel hunting. It's more just like curiosity peaking, right? Anytime you see something that looks a little bit off or looks a little bit, I don't think I've actually gone over there yet. It's almost always is something else, something new. And that's what I love. Like every inch of this game is like not necessarily hiding a secret, but just hiding information. And once you figure it all out, it's pretty charming. It's one of those games where I'll never see it in the same way like that I did. Like I'll never see it in the way that I did the first time I played it. And that's kind of sad. It's one of those ones where you want to just, I wish I could just erase my memory and experience it again. But now, I see everything. I understand it all. Well, not all of it. I didn't do all the rabbit puzzles and stuff. And I know it's crazy, but I did do a handful of those. I just like one of these. Metroidvania's always one of my favorite genres. Metroidvania might be my new favorite genre. And this one, it's just the exploration, the secrets. Exploration and secrets are like literally my favorite things in games. And this game does it so well. And it's so gorgeous. I don't know how a game that's 33 megabytes looks as beautiful as it does. But like, look at this. I mean, it's gorgeous. It's absolutely fucking gorgeous. And I don't even understand how and why. Why are games 100 gigabytes when this one can be 33 megabytes and look this good and play this well? I don't know. Maybe because some genius dude made it. But Animal Well, it's so good. I don't know. It's hard to recommend people who maybe just hit credits and put it down or just played a little bit and put it down to go back to it because that might be tough. But man, I don't know. If you know. The people who kind of put their all into this game, you get a lot back. And I don't know. Just it felt really special to me. Just instantly, I knew when I was playing it that this is one of the best Metroid style games I've ever played. And I truly believe that. And it's only number 3 here, which is crazy. What's 1 and 2? I don't know. I mean, I know what you're thinking. It's got to be Balatro and Astrobot, right? I got some bad news, friends. I know. I'm sorry. You're like, where the fuck is Balatro? What the fuck is 1,000 times resist? What is this? I don't know what this is. Trust me. Bear with me here. This is a game. Look, look, towards the end of the year, I was like, yo, are there any good games out there that are like fully voice acted, that are basically have no gameplay, that I could just like watch? I could just watch while I'm like doing laundry, while I'm fucking washing dishes or something, and just experience a great story that I missed in the year. And holy shit, I did not expect this one to destroy me as much as it did. 1,000 Times Resist is a game that I watched. It is a game with almost no gameplay. What gameplay is there is honestly a little frustrating, because it's exploring the environment and looking for people to talk to at times, and you're like, this environment is weirdly confusing. Here's the good news. Here's the good news. After I finished watching this game, I loved it so much, I purchased it and I played it again, because 1,000 Times Resist is my favorite story of the year. It is my favorite cast of the year. It is my favorite, has all of my favorite video game moments of the year. I think this game is incredible. In fact, I almost made it my game of the year. If I had not watched it first and felt a little weird by that, I may have actually put it as my number one. I will say, it is a good watch if you don't want to buy it. But playing it, there are some decisions you make in this game that are, they add flavor, and then towards the end you're actually making choices that like are pretty impactful and meaningful. But the person I watched when I first watched this game, I was pretty ride or die with. I feel like we were a drift compatible, even though it was a no commentary let's play. But whatever. What the fuck are we talking about? 1,000 Times Resist. I can't even get into like how crazy and good this game is, because I don't want to spoil anything. It is a sci-fi story. You're a clone in a community of clones from the one person who survived basically the end of the world and created a community of herself. And it just so happened that she was kind of a asshole teenage girl. And what happens when an asshole teenage girl is the basis for all of the rest of future society and all the shit she brought with her from the real world. This is a pretty amazing story with pretty amazing characters and performances and writing. And even though it is a visual novel of sorts, there's very little gameplay. It is mostly all narrative. It is, for an indie game, surprisingly beautiful. And I think it's beautiful because it's extremely well shot. Like just the shot composition of like these conversations between characters, and like these moments where you're doing these communions, which are kind of like memory sequences where it can get pretty like out there visually. That stuff looks so good. It's so good that it really is just like a game that it doesn't have like the best character models, but like, man, how can something so like old look so good? I don't even know how to describe it. I think it has a lot to do with the fact that the people who made this game used to work in performance theater, so like they understand what it's like to compose like a really like cool looking shot, and like you absolutely see that stuff in this game. But really, it comes down to, man, like this hit me on so many levels I was not expecting. Like I get it. Like it's all very relatable, and I think everyone's gonna find like very relatable things and themes and characters, like maybe in different, depending on like who you are and where you came from. And I get it, but like, even though it's like some bonkers science fiction story that you might think would be like hard to follow because aliens showed up and they made everyone cry themselves to death, and that sounds crazy, and it is crazy, but I'm telling you, like it is not a complex game to understand, like, the themes and like the relatable emotions. It's just a really powerful game, really great story, amazing characters, god damn it, Hecky Almo, Hecky Grace. None of this makes sense to you. You just got to play this game. I don't know. I've been thinking about this game for so long. Since I've played this, I almost am like too exhausted to even like talk about it right now. But everyone should play 1,000 Times Resist. I bought a Steam copy so all of my Steam family sharing homies can play this game, and I don't think any of them have, and I really, really hate them for it, those motherfuckers. Play 1,000 Times Resist or watch 1,000 Times Resist. I don't care. Beautiful music, Holy shit, Fixer Song. Make sure if you do play this game, don't rush it. Take time, explore, talk to people. You'll find like amazing little moments. The writing is so good. The performances are so good. Just out of this world. How is this not my game of the year? I love it so much. 1,000 Times Resist. I'm like ready to get a fucking tattoo. You know, that's that's how much I connected with this game. I'm ready. I'm ready, man. Let's do it. Let's do it. It's not my number one. My number one is cheating. Whatever. My number one, my favorite game of 2024 is not fair. It is 50 games. It is UFO 50. 50 games in one. It really should not even be fair. And I look, if you haven't played this or if you dabbled in this, you're like, fuck you. What are you talking about? You're just old. And that's why you like this, because these are a bunch of old games. Well, it's not true, man. It's not true. I didn't even like NES games. I'm not even a Mega Man guy. Classic Castlevania, go fuck yourself. Classic Final Fantasy, Dragon Warrior, I don't care about that stuff. I didn't even really start really liking games until like Super Nintendo. PlayStation is probably where I became a sicko, you know. It's not like I miss games from the 80s. You know, I went to the arcade, I guess, but I didn't like care about those games. Look, I'm old. This is not a game about playing games that are old. This is a game from the creators of Spelunky, first and foremost, and like games like Dowell and stuff. It's basically a group of homies that got together to make a compilation of games for like an imaginary console from that era. And they made 50 games, like 50, not mini games, not micro games. They made 50 like full video games. Some of them are arcade score based games, and like the ones that are like kind of fucking great. But like there's like RPGs and shit in here, full Metroidvanias. There are games I spent 10 plus hours playing through within this game of 50 games, and almost none of them are like, every single one is different from one another. They're unique. They made sure that there wasn't like weird repeats in this compilation of games. And there are sequels, and even the games that have sequels like Campanella 1 and Campanella 2 and Campanella 3, they're like different genres. Campanella 2 is just a Spelunky. Like he made, like Derek Yu made another one of those, and it's just one game within these 50 games. I love this so much, like just from the look and the soundtracks and the fact that there's like a history of going from game to game, and they kind of explain like the year it came out and what they were testing when they made this game, and it's just such a cool fucking package. And there's secrets and secret codes, and you're trying to figure that stuff out, because some of these games are like hard as balls, and using a code would be nice. But like just the games themselves, there's a few games on this list that I like so much they may have made my top 10 list. Likely would have made my top 10 list if I had like evaluated them on their own. And I realize it's not fair, because if that's true, then of course it's not fair that a compilation of 50 of these games is going to make my number one. But it really is that complete package. The way that you boot this game up and you're just staring at 50 games, and so many of them are so good. There are a few that I kind of didn't like, but it really was just a few. But just as you stare at the screen of 50 games, and as you start to beat them, you get gold cards. And if you like, you can quote unquote platinum, and you get cherry cards. And you see that reflected on your main screen, and just sort of looking at it and going, whoa, this feels good, and wanting to like dive back into these games to get those clears and to get those cherries, and just wanting to really see what a game is all about. And there are games that, as I was kind of going through like 1 through 50, dabbling until I found one that I really clicked with, circling back to a game that I really didn't vibe with at first, dumping like another 5 hours into it and going, oh, this is just as like amazing and magical as all the other games that I've been falling for. They made 50 games, and they all have like a hook or like something clever or just refined about it. Like games from the 80s, like NES games and arcade games, there's some like neat ones, there's some standouts, but a lot of them were like sloppy or imbalanced or like just bullshit and unfair, these games feel refined, you know, in a way that like a modern indie game is, even though it's like channeling games from that era, you know, it doesn't, and they are, some of them are really hard. They feel fair in a way that those old games didn't feel fair. So like even approaching that style of game with like that sort of refinement is really impressive. I want to shout out some games, but I feel like if I start shouting out UFO 50 games, it's going to spoil a video that I want to do. I feel like if I don't mention any specific titles, it's sort of putting the, you know, it's putting the pressure on me to do a video a bonus video that I want to do, in which is I want to do a top 10 video of my favorite games from UFO 50, because I can talk literally for another hour about how much I love UFO 50, because there really are so many cool games in there. Games that they're doing shit that I've not even seen other games, standalone games do. I want to say some of them so bad, but if I do it, I gotta restrain myself. You're just gonna have to trust me. This is a great game just to boot up and just fuck around with stuff, because there's so much. When you boot up the game, it says play forever. Play forever is like the little slogan that comes up before you see the screen where you pick your game, and like it's so true. I feel like I could play this game forever, because there are like score-based games and stuff that are as good or better than stuff like Pac-Man and whatnot. It's so good. I can't even, I mean, I literally can't talk about any specific games. I refuse to do it. You're going to have to trust me. UFO 50, my game of the year. I'm going to keep playing it forever, but I'm going to do that top 10 video. So I want you to look for that, because it's hype. There's some fucking amazing fucking games in there. So, that's it. This is my number one. 50 games. This has been 50, I guess it's 59 games of 2024. Anyway, see you in 2025. Yeah, that's right. No Balatro. Fuck you, huh? Actually, I do love Balatro. It was on this list probably like 8 different times before I cut it off. I just wanted to talk about the games maybe that not everyone was talking about, but also some of them, of course, they are. Anyways, y'all have a good year. I'm going to go play some Monster Hunter. Bye.